Hey everyone, welcome to Fullson Cyber's 5th episode. Today we're going to be going over the holistic approach to breaking into cybersecurity. First off, Austin, you recently got your first cybersecurity job. Would you say it was one thing that got you in? Was it a list of things? Like what was your approach?
So I originally, when I became interested in cybersecurity, I started a boot camp, and I just went through a cybersecurity boot camp that was provided to me by my job, and I started applying to a bunch of different cybersecurity jobs, basically thinking I went through this boot camp, I should be able to get a job, because there's certain careers, like if you're trying to get into be a plumber or you're trying to be an electrician, you go through the school that they have for that, and then you get into an apprenticeship and you start going. And I thought that was going to be the same thing with cybersecurity, applied to a bunch of different jobs, nothing worked out. And so I noticed that one thing I was missing was a college degree. I thought I had the skill sets to do it, but it's not really enough to just say on a resume, I have skills using Wireshark or Snort or any of the other things that I worked on that I feel like I can genuinely say I'm competent at using. I know what I'm doing. If you sat me down with those tools, I could do it. But there's no way to prove it. It's just me saying it. So I got a degree, I got a bunch of certifications, and about halfway through my degree, I got the job that I have now, which is a technology supervisor. And I'm blessed because in the job, I've got a ton of free range to do any type of security projects that I want. They pretty much have me there as their security guy for the company that I work for. So really thankful for it. But there's no way that I can say it was my Security Plus certification that got me the job, because that was a certification that I had when I did the interview. That was the farthest I got. But they didn't ask me one thing about certifications. They didn't ask me one thing about my degree. It was a combination of things. Now, maybe my resume and the certifications got me the interview, but the certifications didn't come up in the interview. The degree didn't come up in the interview.
So something I think me and you talked about that was mentioned was your YouTube videos, right?
Yes. Yeah. So that was the other thing I did. I'm glad you mentioned that, because I wasn't even thinking about that. But yeah, so I made a YouTube channel. And on that YouTube channel at the time, I got a lot more different stuff on it now. But at the time, it was basically just try hack me walkthroughs and working on just making videos. And it was really the most just simple, basic things. But the guy that did my interview told me that he watched every single video on that YouTube channel, because I put it in the resume, basically, that was something that I did, and specifically watched it just to see my communication skills and basically see how I'm able to communicate things about IP addresses or about firewalls or about IDS, IPS systems, or you name it when it comes to cybersecurity, and just being able to explain something like that in a way that him, a completely non-technical person that knows nothing about what we do with cybersecurity, how I was able to explain it. And he obviously liked me because I'm the one that got the job. So it was a combination of a lot of different things, but I think the YouTube channel definitely was something that was a very big deal.
And so bringing it back to like the holistic approach, so you got your first role now in cyber pretty much, and now you're at a place where you can kind of build on like the foundational skills. You have basically a giant like playground to to learn as many fundamentals as you want. Like you have a lot of free reign in that role. I think a lot of people who are breaking into cyber, they kind of frustrated because everybody talks about, oh, these entry-level roles require X amount of experience, et cetera, et cetera. But the reality is, if you look at a lot of people who break into these roles, they either have like some kind of help desk role or they have documented experience that shows they have that level of knowledge, kind of like your YouTube channel.
Yeah.
And I feel like there's different ways to go about that. So getting a college degree gives you a one leg up on someone who doesn't, because maybe there was someone who had the same amount of experience as you, same amount of fundamentals and knowledge, but maybe you have a college degree, or maybe you have more certifications. So with the entry level being so competitive, certifications are a great way to validate your knowledge, validate your fundamentals, but you also have to prove that you can do the thing. Like you have to be able to prove it, because I mean, I think you would agree with me, right? That like CYSA Plus doesn't prove that you can be a SOC analyst.
No.
Pen Test Plus doesn't prove that you can be a pen tester.
Yeah, as someone that, I consider penetration testing my, niche in my area of doing things, the Pen Test Plus exam, you can pass that exam and have no idea what you're doing as a penetration tester. And honestly, knowing backwards how to do penetration testing, according to CompTIA. But, it explains. I think the certifications, like what CompTIA considers their intermediate certifications, are good, that you basically have a fundamental understanding of what somebody in that role does, and that you should be able to sit down and have a conversation with somebody about that job. And it lays a good foundation for you to then get that job and be able to put the puzzle pieces together. It's like, I guess a good way to explain it would be like you have a box of like a 500 piece puzzle, and when you complete it, you are an expert SOC analyst or something. CISA Plus is like the table that you're going to put the puzzle together on top of. You need a flat surface to start off of. That's a good place to start. But the important thing to understand is it's a start. It's not the end product. You're not even close to the end product at that point. And that's not to insult you. I just got the certification 3 weeks ago, but don't get that certification and claim to be an expert, because that's not the way that this industry works at all. I don't think there's any certification, and you can correct me if you think I'm wrong. I don't think there's any certification, including the GSE, that anybody can claim, I got this certification, I am a tip-top expert in this industry. You're always growing in this industry. And if you think you were an expert a year ago and you've done nothing to build on that expertise, you're not an expert today, because it's constantly changing.
So I would agree with you. The only thing that I can't agree with you on, because I probably will never take that exam, is the GSC.
Yeah.
But after reading what's all involved with that,
yeah,
if you're not an expert at the end of passing that, then I don't know what would make you an expert. But no, I totally think you're right, and bring it back to our core subject, which is the holistic approach to breaking into cybersecurity. So we have a college degree possibly as a strategic advantage to get an entry-level role. You're going to have to be able to demonstrate that you can do the actual thing. Can you do the actual job? Maybe that's doing stuff on Let's Defend if you want to be a SOC analyst. Maybe it's doing stuff on TryHackMe, doing walkthrough videos on your YouTube channel, having podcasts like this, just talking these things out and demonstrating your technical communication. And then I'm forgetting the third thing right now. So we have certification. Oh yeah. So certifications. The other thing that I thought about, I came up with, I mean, this is a common term, but a common body of knowledge. Like certifications provide like a common body of knowledge, a lexicon that everybody can talk from. Because honestly, I think the COISA Plus and the Pen Test Plus are really great certifications for fundamental knowledge, but for strategic leaders, they're also very useful too. Like let's say you go work for a company like Black Hills InfoSec, and you're supposed to be a project manager, but you don't know how pen tests go. Pen Test Plus would be a pretty good cert for you to be like, okay, like I get how all this stuff goes together. You're definitely not gonna be able to do a pen test, but you're gonna understand like how they're supposed to work, reporting, the structure of a pen test, etc. Well, like what the purpose of a pen test is, things like that.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. And I think that one thing we've kind of talked about a little bit, and you mentioned like doing the YouTube channel. You and I have this podcast, and honestly, like, a lot of this podcast is we just wanted to start it to just be able to talk to different people, talk about cybersecurity, and just kind of share, tips and tricks for, succeeding, whether it be just in professional development, your mindset, lots of stuff like that, and sharing that with you. But one thing that a lot of technical professionals have a real problem with is just being able to communicate and talk to people, and what better way to document I have the ability to speak with people, get down on their level and talk to them, than demonstrating that on a social media platform like YouTube or like LinkedIn. Just being able to be on there and just talking to people, writing creative posts. You don't even have to be like one of these people that talks about posting every single day and doing that for 365 days straight, or just whatever. You don't have to be someone that you're not, and you don't have to get on there and fake it, but just be a genuine person, build genuine relationships with people and talk to them. That is a really good way to demonstrate that you have that skill of communication, because it sounds like just such a basic thing. And I will say it's funny because I see people that they have the skill of communication, but they literally don't have any other skill, and they think that they should get the cybersecurity job. It doesn't work like that, but if you are someone that has the technical skills and you don't have the skill of communication, you are lacking in that area. And that's a really important thing that you should try to get. But it doesn't work that you're really a communicator. So here's $100,000 a year job. That's not the way that it works. But it is you can really build off of the communication skill. But that's a really important thing, I think, for someone trying to get in.
Yeah, and even if you're not a good like conversational communicator, just doing like walkthroughs or producing some kind of document on LinkedIn that like if you can both add value to like someone else and at the same time demonstrate your own competency, that doesn't have to be a podcast. That can just be like, hey, here's a set of instructions. Here's how you build a SOC home lab. Sometimes, honestly, like, I mean, for me as a leader, like one of the things that I see as my job is not necessarily to answer every question, but just to know how to ask the right questions. Like maybe you're good at that, or maybe you're really good at like at the more technical stuff. But you got to kind of got to take yourself out of your comfort zone and just have a really balanced approach. And like kind of bringing it back more to like breaking into cybersecurity, you're probably going to have to get a little bit out of your comfort zone if you're not really big on the communication part. If you're not a good test taker, you might have to like, suffer through taking a few certifications.
Yeah.
I mean, but it's going to take a very balanced strategic approach to break into cybersecurity. It's unfortunate that's how it is. And one thing that I kind of want to hit on, there was a conversation I had recently where someone, I get tons of messages. I know you do too, but I get a message all the time and it goes kind of something like this, like, hey, Paul, I'm looking for advice. I want to make $125,000 a year. Okay. You and everyone else. So it's like, yeah, me too. Like, cool, man. The question is like, what do you want to become that warrants you getting paid $125,000 a year? You need to be very targeted. And honestly, there's tons of tools available to us. One thing that I did is I took 3 job descriptions that I was interested in, like 3 jobs that like I knew I would be happy in, ran them all through ChatGPT, and I asked ChatGPT to shoot back out to me 30 attributes that someone would have for like all 3 of these jobs descriptions combined. And then I took all the ones that I actually am and we're like, cool, check. And then all the ones that I wasn't are things that I need to work on.
Yeah.
So you need to be like targeted in like what you're doing. It can't just be like, I want to make $125,000 a year. Okay. Like, cool. So the question is, what do you want to become to make that much money? And honestly, I'm going to be real. If money is your only goal, I don't know how you're going to endure the fact that like you're in an industry where like there is never going to be a moment where you make it. Yeah. Like it's never ending.
100%. Well, and like what you're talking about there, one of the best pieces of advice that I ever got, because I feel like a lot of us are on here. If you're listening to this podcast and you're trying to get an insight into mindset and just kind of forming it, I want you to just sit and just think with me progressively as I'm talking about this. You look at yourself 5 to 10 years from now. Where do you see yourself? What do you think that you are going to look like? What do you want your income to be? And especially if you're trying to get into cybersecurity, you're probably thinking about yourself 10 years from now. You're making over $100,000 a year. You're living in a nice house. You're financially secure. You got all these things going for you. Well, what does that person 10 years from now that you have the idea of that you're going to become, what are they like? What time do they get out of bed in the morning? What type of projects are they working on? How do they interact with people? How do they talk to people? Are you that person today? Because if you're not that person today, you need to start figuring out how you're going to become that person, or else you never will. And honestly, there was a time probably around, 7-8 months ago that I sat and I heard that and I looked at myself and I thought to myself about what the person I want to be 10 years from now was completely different than the person that I was. And so I sat down and was like, all right, you know what? I'm going to start pretending that I am that person, and not being fake, but basically just every single day, I'm going to try harder and harder and harder to become that person. And, the progress that I've made just in my personal life, the way that I am just schedule wise, the way that I am in talking to people, the stuff that I've been able to accomplish, whether it's college or just getting into this job, it's because I've been working towards being that person. And it's like, when you think about that type of salary, another thing that I'll do, like that my wife and I will do, is just go on what we would call an inspiration drive and literally just get in the car and just drive into a neighborhood that you want to live in someday and just take observation of the people that live there. What do they look like? This has nothing to do with cybersecurity. Do they take care of their house? Is there trash all over their yard, or is it kept? And is it nice? It's usually nice. They take care of their stuff. What time do they get up and get started in the morning? Early. How are they living their life? Disciplined. And it's like, if you want to be there, that's how you have to be. You're not just going to magically wake up one day and someone's going to pick you up and place you there. You have to work and climb up that mountain and achieve that. And the thing is, sitting at the bottom, you're not a person that has climbed up to the top of the mountain. But as you're climbing up the mountain, you're getting stronger and stronger and stronger until you get to the top where you want to be. And then you've achieved that. But that comes through hard work. And I think that's what we're talking about today. There's no magic hill or elevator that you can just get on to transport you up to the job that you want, or the house that you want, or the career, anything. It's step by step. It's a combination of things. And both of us have talked about it, and let's just be honest. It's frustrating to see people lied to about, just bad advice, that they're being tricked and deceived into thinking that they're handed something. And it's just not true. It takes hard work. I mean, both of us, just be honest. If you've been working hard, it's exhausting. Right?
So yeah. And the one thing I'll add to that is I'm sure you can tell that sometimes I don't want to come across wrong, but I'll risk that, I guess. I'm sure you can tell that sometimes when you share your progress, there are people where you can tell in their comments like they're slightly envious, or they're trying to like downgrade what you've done.
Yes.
And it is what it is. I mean, it is what it is. I really don't care. I'm very used to it now. I'm sure you are too.
Yeah.
But what those people don't see, and the people who want to skip all that kind of like irritate me a little bit, because I'm 34 years old. Like I'm making up for lost time. I have 10 years of experience in the Marine Corps. Like, it took me a lot of work and struggle to get here, a lot of mistakes to get here. You know what I mean? Like, you just came out of a job that like you hate it. You know what I mean? Like it has taken daily consistent work. Yes. The one thing that has been a staple for me is daily consistent progress. Like, when I posted about my bachelor's, like listening to stuff passively in the car to and from work, doing pocket prep quizzes every time I go to the bathroom, like studying during lunch breaks, like studying when I'm doing cardio at the gym. Yeah. Every day I wake up and I listen to the CISO series news. I listen to Black Hills talking about InfoSec every single week. I have a task list of like all kinds of things that I'm constantly working on. There's things that I'm working on that like I don't even talk about on LinkedIn, because there's just so much. Yeah. But it's like it's almost like a really unhealthy obsession to be entire. Like, it is exhausting, and that is what it has taken to like do these things so fast. When the reality is like there's a lot of people who just aren't willing to do that, and they just want to be like, oh, I got my Sec Plus, like pay me. But the reality is there's all this background stuff of like hands-on skills, building a home lab, doing a podcast, like talking to like-minded people. I've probably learned more from talking to like-minded people than anything. Seeking out mentors. My mentor is I'm not gonna say his name, but my mentor, like I literally talk to him once per month. I request a time with him. I have my questions ready. I write down notes on everything he talks about. And then the next time I talk to him, I make sure I've applied something that he shared with me. Yeah. I respect his time, and he gives me like great feedback. Like all these things, like I'm literally wholly obsessed, like, and focused on this. And you are too. Yeah. And that's, I mean, unfortunately, that's just what it takes to move towards making $125,000 a year.
Yeah. And when you're looking, and that's the thing, we're not trying to be rude or downgrade anything or even give off the impression that we think that we're better than everybody else. I don't think that for 1 second. But what I'm saying is that this is an extraordinarily competitive job market. When you look at a remote cybersecurity analyst job, and that's not what I have, but if you look at a job like that and that's what you're doing because you have, with no experience, have limited yourself to remote only opportunities, and there are over 1,000 applicants for every single one of those jobs, basically. What are you doing to make yourself stand out to even get an interview? Because let's just pretend that you do have all the knowledge and the skills necessary to perform that job adequately. How are you going to even get the interview? How is the person that's hiring for that job even going to know your name? You have to make yourself known. And that's what we're doing today is just sharing what we have done. For me, I started a YouTube channel. I have, we did this podcast together. I created Try Hack Me walkthroughs. I went to Western Governors University. I've not completed it yet, but I'm like a week away from doing it. And I got all the certifications in the program. That's how I've done it. What are you going to do? Don't just copy me. Don't start a podcast with a buddy. Don't start a YouTube channel making Try Hack Me walkthroughs just because that's what I did and that's what worked for me. But that's just how I made myself stand out. You probably have something that you're uniquely qualified for based on past experience. Something that I used to do was specifically making videos on a YouTube channel for a church that I used to go to and, helping a lot out with the video there. I worked for a drone company where I did photography and different things like that. I've been able to pile all those skills in together to be able to use that to my advantage. What skills have you done in the past that you can use for your advantage towards cybersecurity, if that's what you're trying to get into? And that doesn't even just apply to cybersecurity. That applies to any job. What are you doing to help yourself stand out? And if you can't source any skills, if you're telling me that you're like 30 years old and you literally have no skills that you have gained in the 12 years from when you turned 18 years old and became a legal adult in this country, what have you done? And you have no skills. I don't believe that. You've got some.
So, and I'll even add this too, like if you don't have any skills, okay, but there's someone somewhere where you're at.
Mhm.
And if you're at the entry level, well, there's plenty of people where you're at because everybody's trying to break into cybersecurity right now.
Yeah.
And then also too, we kind of mentioned this. This is kind of slightly off subject, but we mentioned this on the podcast we were on earlier today. And something I like to point out to people, especially when it comes to like taking help desk roles. One of the things in a recent interview I had that was mentioned was they looked at my progression, and like the interviewer didn't say anything about, my certifications, my degree, the fact that I was almost done with my master's, none of that. The thing that was mentioned specifically was you have been exposed to a large variety of different things and you have the type of progression of someone we're looking for.
Mhm.
So 10 years down the road, like that help desk experience, that experience in that role that you may not have thought was important, you may not have thought was, sexy or whatever, like it might like show like progression, and that might have long-term dividends. One of the things that my mentor told me when I first started talking to him was that when I get out of the Marine Corps, like if I spend 2 years in a role and I feel stagnant and I feel like I'm not learning anything, I instantly need to move on to the next thing.
Mhm.
I need to move on to the next role. I mean, granted, like that I guess depends on what your goals are, and if you just want to, hang out at that role, that's fine. That it is what it is. But ideally, you would want to expose yourself to like different technologies, different problem sets, different people, different companies, different industries. Maybe you work in the banking sector for a while. Maybe it's time to move into like healthcare, like
Mhm.
something like that. But just keeping your development in mind, your progression and things like that, that's also something that you can kind of weaponize in the more long-term game in cyber.
Yeah, 100%. And that's just, at the end of the day, the point that we're trying to make is there isn't one specific thing that you need to do to get a job in this industry. It's a combination of a lot of things. And one term that I'm honestly getting kind of tired of hearing are about these magical beings called cybersecurity gatekeepers. They don't exist. All right. What exists are people that want you to have a certain skill set in order to qualify for a certain job. And without you being able to demonstrate that specific skill set, they aren't going to hire you. You know, when you think about just business perspective, what is a business hiring somebody and paying them a significant salary for cybersecurity? It is not something that makes their business any money. It's something that ensures the security of their assets. Other people within the business are the ones that are making them the money. They're the ones that, on a profit, you know, standpoint, from that viewpoint, they're the ones that make sense to pay a lot of money. You're asking your business to pay you a lot of money to be a drain in terms of profitability, unless we're talking about, protecting them from certain regulations and fines and things like that. But you are there to protect their assets, not to give them assets. If you have no ability to demonstrate to them that you will ensure the security and that they are going to be secure, then why would they be willing to make that significant of an investment into you? And the people that are able the best, honestly, to demonstrate to a business they can ensure security are people that have a holistic understanding of technology in general. And where people get that, and I'm saying that as someone who hasn't been in that type of a role, where people get that holistic understanding of just all types of technology? Help desk. Honestly, that's where you're going to be dealing with the most types of things. That's when you're going to be learning about every different type of computer in an organization. You're going to be learning about every different type of printer. You're going to be learning about IoT and all kinds of stuff like that. And
Communication
troubleshooting it.
skills.
Yeah, learning the ends of every little thing. And I've seen people that talk about why do printers matter for someone that's going to be working in cybersecurity? Well, maybe someone's able to hack into your network because of a printer that's left with default credentials, but you didn't know anything about default credentials because you never even touched a printer on the terminal in a Linux machine. All of this stuff matters. And while it might not seem like it matters, someone's not a gatekeeper because they want you to have that experience. They want you to have that experience so when you get that role, you understand what you're doing. And the only people in the world that say that what I said right there is gatekeeper type of stuff are people that have never worked help desk and understood it, because every single person that I have ever talked to that has worked in a help desk role has said exactly what you just said, that it is very important work, that you learn a lot of information doing it. And, I've, not got a job where I'm doing help desk necessarily. I'll be helping people with different issues when they come up, but really, I don't think I'm going to have that much of an issue with it. But, don't bash people that are doing help desk. That's really important work. And those people are laying a solid foundation to build off of. So don't make it as something that you just want to skip over or that you feel like you're too overqualified for it because of the certification that you've got. That's not true.
Yeah. And I mean, you could even, like, let's say you're trying to change careers and it's going to be a pay cut. You can look at that short-term pay cut as an investment in your long-term growth. And just kind of like a matter of principle for me, what you just spoke about, like calling people gatekeepers, like especially companies, I think this is more of a cultural thing. I don't know what it is, but I don't know where people like what are the best kind of relationships? Like I'll use that to illustrate it. The best kind of relationships are mutually beneficial ones.
Mm-hmm.
So what makes you think that a company that probably doesn't really care that much about like people as much as they do about profit, like at the end of the day, it's about profit, right?
Yeah.
Like what makes you think that a company or anyone is obligated to subsidize your development?
Mm-hmm.
Like it's unfortunate. Like, I mean, it is what it is. Like it sounds unfair to some people, but like it has to be a mutually beneficial relationship.
Yep.
During one of my interviews, I could kind of tell I think the interviewer was kind of surprised that I said this, but like, what are the three things important for you? And one of the things I said is, a mutually beneficial relationship that's like, balanced. I provide X amount of value, you provide X amount of value back, and it's reciprocal. Like, that's really it. That's really all that's all we are all looking for.
Yep.
When an employer invests in your education, it's because they're going to get some value out of it, and so will you.
Yes.
And granted, not all companies, are perfect, and some of them are going to try to pay you the bottom dollar. And it is what it is. But I mean, honestly, as I'm getting ready to transition, I've heard of companies with some amazing opportunities that,
Yeah.
like, I can't wait to work in the civilian world, to be honest.
Yeah.
But yeah, like, just like try to be of value, and just remember, like it may feel unfair, but like at the end of the day, like you either have the skills or you don't. Like,
Yeah.
it is what it is. Like, sorry.
No, and you're right. And you have to become that person. What, like I was saying earlier, what does the version of you look like 10 years from now that's worth $125,000, $150,000 a year? Because if that's not what you're making right now, then you haven't been able to prove to an employer that that is what your worth is. So what can you do between now and your dream stage of life? What can you do to be able to prove and demonstrate to an employer that that's who you are and that you're worth that amount of money? It's honestly going to be done by gaining experience. And while you might hate it, that experience might be gained in a help desk environment. That's just how it works, and I don't think people that work in help desks should be bashed. I love it when I get connected with people that, I would rather get a message from someone, and I'm not saying don't reach out to me and message me. I still have advice for you and stuff that I can do to help you. But I really like it when people reach out to me that are asking about cybersecurity that have a couple years under their belt of help desk, because I know, hey, you're just a couple job applications away from getting an interview for one of these jobs, And when you see the entry-level cybersecurity roles that are asking for a couple years of experience, they're asking for IT experience, and they're asking because they want to verify that what you're even dealing with and securing in the first place, and that time that you spend in a basic pure entry-level IT role is what you're going to get the experience to build and lay a strong foundation to build cybersecurity on top of later. That's not how it always has to be done. And there are some companies that are letting you get in, bypassing all this stuff that we're talking about, but that's a rarity. All right. Don't look at the people that have done this, that just got lucky basically, or got into one of these roles, skipping all the stuff that we're talking about. Don't make your goal to become the anomaly, because chances are you're going to be really disappointed. And I hate seeing people that work so hard and get so many qualifications and credentials, and they still can't get a job because somebody lied to them down the line.
You honestly need to just seek out every strategic advantage that you can.
Yep.
At the end of the day. And there's something else I was going to say, but I forget.
Networking is a big deal. I know you mentioned that, just being able to build connections with people and get in contact with other professionals. That I don't think there's anyone better to learn from than other people that are actually doing the job and in the industry. One thing I did at one point was I started out, I lived in Illinois a few months ago. I recently moved to the area that I'm at now in Central Ohio. I literally went on LinkedIn and I Googled and I just searched every single cybersecurity analyst, SOC analyst, anything that lived in the Central Ohio area. I sent them a connection request and said that I was moving and just asked them what it took for them to get into the industry. And you know what? A lot of them said they started out in a basic general IT role.
Oh, now I remember what I was going to say. This is actually kind of important. At least I think it illustrates something. When I was at one of my units, I worked with civilians and contractors. Mm-hmm. The civilians and contractors honestly did very basic. Some of the ones that I worked close to, at least, did some really basic things, like creating accounts in Active Directory, fixing DHCP scopes, super simple stuff. Got a few tickets a day, did their thing, went home. But some of them, their time in between tickets, guess what they were doing?
Research.
Studying.
Yes.
They were studying their ass off. And guess what? Every single one of them who was studying their ass off and getting certifications and upping their credentials and learning new skill sets, every single one of them use that place as a place to just leapfrog straight into their next role.
Yep.
And I mean it. I mean, help desk is pretty, I mean, I guess it depends on where you're working at help desk, but that particular help desk type role, it was actually a sysadmin role, but they were just, doing their tickets, pretty predictable, clock in, clock out, do your tickets, go home. But the time in between, they were taking advantage of that spare time, and every single one who was doing that transitioned out of that role or moved up to a higher role doing something else, and like vulnerability management or something like that.
Yeah. Every day. I mean, we all have 24 hours in a day. Let's just all pretend that we get 8 hours of sleep a night. You got 16 hours after that. 16 hours. What are you doing with 16 hours? I'm not I don't think either of us are saying, both of us have families. We've got, we're married, we got kids. Neither of us are saying that you just completely neglect your family and you don't speak to your family or do anything with it. The whole reason that you're doing this stuff, at least that I'm doing this stuff, is my family. I would have
Same
no
here.
reason to pursue any of this stuff if I didn't have children, if I didn't have a wife that I'm trying to just give the best life that I can to, and in doing all that, we're not saying you neglect that, but in your spare free time, are you sitting and scrolling on your phone? Are you playing video games? Or are you working to better yourself as a human being? I'm not saying never take any breaks. If you did that, it's only going to be a matter of time before you just completely jump off a cliff and you never come back on. Take your breaks when you need them, but what are you doing to be productive? And that's ultimately what we're saying. We're coming in a lot of different directions. We're talking about a lot of different things. Culmination of everything that we're saying, do everything that you can to get into this job. It is not a one-stop shop. It is not, there's no magic pill you can take. There's no magic certification you can obtain. It is a culmination of everything. And it's just a competitive job market. And the reality is that not everybody's going to make it. So what are you going to do to be one of those people that does make it and not vice versa?
110%. I mean, I think we covered just about everything. So just to summarize it, every single strategic advantage you can get, whether that's certifications, college degree, networking, demonstrating your skills on YouTube, creating blog posts on something like Medium, constantly refining your resume. I highly recommend doing that because it'll keep you really familiar with like the summary of your skill set. So in an interview, it's very easy to answer questions when you read your resume on a weekly basis and word it better. And yeah, just do everything you can so that way you leave no room for doubt. And honestly, if you do everything you can, I mean, that's all you got, right? So I mean, it's really all you can do is everything that you can. Try to adopt a stoic mindset that just try to do everything that's within your control.
Yep, absolutely.
That has to be enough.
And at the end of the day, while we're wrapping this down, if you felt like at any point during this episode that we were being mean or insensitive or anything like that, we're saying all this stuff because we genuinely actually care about the people that are listening to this show. And both of us on a weekly basis, I'm just, be transparent. I am weekly tormented by the posts that I see on LinkedIn of people being lied to about this type of stuff. I don't want to act like, I'm just like some major superhero that's climbed Mount Everest in order to get where I'm at today. I haven't done extraordinary measures, but it's not as simple as people make it out to be. And it's not just a matter of being nice to people on LinkedIn and being friendly that's going to get you one of these jobs. And we are just trying to give as valuable of a perspective as we can give of our own personal experiences and what we've done to get to the point that we're at. And I'm coming at it from someone that just a month ago, I was working in a warehouse, and 9 months ago, I started learning about cybersecurity and I started learning about IT and all these other things. And I'm just telling you what I've done and what it took and how I applied to a lot of jobs at different stages throughout that process. And in between certain times, I took breaks because I realized what I'm doing isn't working. And I didn't want to be one of these people that my key attribute and key identifier is that I've applied to 1,000 jobs and I haven't heard back one time, And so we're just telling you what we've done. We come from different backgrounds, but ultimately we've done the same core thing and putting in hard, detailed, consistent, focused work to our craft. And we've gotten where we are and we're working towards where we want to be. And so we're just sharing what we want to do, and we're just being honest. I feel like I just shared my heart with you guys today and just told you as truthfully as I could what it is. And maybe it's not popular. Maybe people are going to get mad or upset about it for some reason, but it's the truth. And so this is probably going to be one of our more important episodes that we've done, but it's just honest. And this is just what it takes. And I don't want you to think that we're mean. We genuinely want everybody that listens to this to succeed. We are, like, we're not the people that are just patting you on the back all the time and telling you can do it, but we are those people at the same time. We're just telling you got like 5 miles to run first, and encouraging you to take that step and to do that run and to make it up that mountain, or whatever metaphor you want to use. We're trying to get you to do that, but we're just trying to be realistic at the same time and tell you what it actually takes. So,
yeah, I mean, I'll just echo what you said. We're just trying to be honest, and honestly, if this message offends you, then it's probably not for you anyway, and that's okay. That's okay. If the glad handing messages on LinkedIn are more your thing, there's no shortage of those. And you probably didn't make it this far into the podcast anyway. So there's that. But yeah, I mean, we're just trying to be honest and try to help everyone avoid like some of the pitfalls that we see. And I mean, it obviously worked for Austin. I'm not really super worried about, my transition in the Marine Corps. Granted, I'm going to do everything I can to make sure it's successful, and I'm not going to let up until it's over. But yeah, I mean, I'm honestly, every day I'm just shocked as to like, the people I've met on LinkedIn. I mean, I started my bachelor's last November, and if you would have asked me like, hey, like in a year, like where would you be at? I would have probably told you like close to done with my degree, and here I sit with a lot more than that. And it's it still doesn't feel real at times, but I think like despite that, me and Austin are coming at this from two very different places. Like me in the military with a little bit more experience, especially in like the more strategic level type stuff, and then Austin like making an amazing transition like from his old job to like kicking down the door to to a cyber role. Like, I mean, I feel like me and him, we have a very similar mindset, similar strategies, and I mean, we're just trying to share it with you and be honest about like our perspective. And if it works for you, cool. If it doesn't, well, cool.
Yep. Yeah. So like I said, we've done all that we can. We still want to be able to help you. The whole reason that we even made this in the first place and we're talking about this is because we want to help you. So don't feel like you can't reach out. We want to talk to you. We want to help you through this stuff, but don't feel bad when the advice that we give you isn't necessarily what you want to hear, because sometimes you might need to hear something different. So we are probably just about at the end of time today, but I think that we've covered a lot. If you have any questions or you're just interested in hearing more, either one of us is open to reach out. Shoot us a message on LinkedIn. I want to do everything I can to help people. I genuinely, sincerely want to help people get into this industry. This has been life-changing for me. This job that I'm in now compared to where I was working in the warehouse is literally life-changing for our family. And just, it's so much better. I want as many people to be able to experience that as possible. I just want you to understand that you're going to have to work hard for it. And I think that's pretty much everything that we're saying today. So we're going to wrap it up now. This has been the 5th episode of the Full Sun Cyber Podcast. Be sure to like this, subscribe, share. This is a really important message that we've done today. Really care a lot about it. And we care about you guys. We want you guys to be able to make it into these roles. We just want to be honest with you about how it takes to get there. So, Paul, if you got any last minute thoughts, you can close it out.
Yeah. So like Austin said, feel free to reach out to us. More than happy to help. This message is definitely coming from a place of care. And yeah, this was a great episode. And honestly, like this was useful for me to talk this out and get this off my chest, because I know this is something we spoke about before, maybe not this in depth. But yeah, feel free to reach out to us, reach out to Austin on LinkedIn, reach out to me on LinkedIn. And be sure to subscribe, share this video with anyone you think will find it useful. And until next time, have a good one, everyone.